Hopper buries his gang members under a heap of grains. Syndrome used high-tech machines to almost wipe out every superhero, while Grimmel the Grizzly used expertise to strike fear. These villains feel smart, not because the movie tells us, but because they earn it. But then there's Screenslaver, who talks a lot, Scarlet Overkill, who accessorizes more than she strategizes, and Callahan, who's apparently a genius but forgets to act like one. So how do you do it right? How do you write a villain who is smarter than you? To write a villain that is smarter than you need to give that villain 4 basic things. The first of these is purpose. Just look at every smart villain out there, and you will notice a common trend of action mixed with cause. Their intelligence usually comes from knowing what they want and doing everything within their power to get it. Basically, a smart villain always starts with a smart why. And if you want to see what happens when that's missing, look no further than the Screenslaver in The Incredibles 2. On paper, Evelyn Dever, also known as the Screenslaver, is supposed to be a genius, a brilliant inventor and strategist with sharp ideals.
And the picture is outstanding.
Thanks, designed it myself.
However, what makes her fail as a smart villain is her purpose, or rather, the lack of a clear one. It might sound complex, but it collapses under simple questioning. She builds an entire facade around a fake villain called the Screenslaver, who delivers clever monologues about society's dependence on technology. Those ideas could have carried the movie's central theme, but instead, they turn out to be meaningless distractions. Evelyn's real motive is to keep superheroes illegal.
You're gonna help me make supers illegal forever.
The problem is, they already are. There's nothing new to fight for. Her reasoning stems from childhood trauma. Her father was killed by robbers after refusing to hide in a safe room. He tried to call superheroes for help, but none came. To Evelyn, that dependence on heroes cost him his life. She grows up believing that people should never rely on anyone else, least of all, heroes. That belief could have made her fascinating, but her actions don't follow through logically. Instead of directly opposing her brother, who wants to restore superheroes' public image, she helps him do it, just so she can later ruin it. She stages attacks, hypnotizes heroes, and creates chaos, but all in service of a plan that circles back on itself. She's trying to destroy something that's already destroyed. A smart villain acts with purpose that pushes the story forward, whereas Evelyn's plan pulls it in circles. So how do you do it right? Simple. Just look at Kingpin from Into the Spider-Verse. He is a perfect example of a villain with a powerful and even relatable purpose. His motivation comes from grief. He lost his wife and son in a car crash after they saw him attacking Spider-Man and ran away in fear. That moment defines him, and he's haunted by it. So when he learns there might be a way to open the multiverse and bring them back, he doesn't hesitate. He pours his time and fortune into building a collider, a machine that could tear open dimensions just to find alternate versions of his family. It's a monstrous plan, but it is relatable because a lot of people would do anything to bring back the one they lost, which is why this next bit is crucial. See, if your villain's why is smart, then they would do anything to preserve it. This is why when Spider-Man tells Kingpin that his plan will not work, Kingpin is enraged and kills him with one brutal blow. That single act tells you everything about him. His intelligence lies in how deeply he believes in his purpose and how far he's willing to go to protect it. This also sends a message to Miles Morales, who watched Kingpin kill Spider-Man. That moment defines his fear, and the audience feels it too. If Kingpin can take down someone as great as Spider-Man, what chance does the young and naive Miles have? That's how you write a smart villain, one whose motivation and power reshape the hero's entire journey and increase the stakes. Kingpin's grief gives him purpose, and that purpose makes him unstoppable, at least until the story demands he lose. Hopper from A Bug's Life is another clear example. He is driven by control, he wants obedience, and he uses fear to get it. The ants gather food for the grasshoppers every season, and Hopper has no intention of changing that.
So where is it? Where's my food?
Why hunt when someone else can do the work? Therefore, when one ant, Flick, dares to stand up to him, Hopper refuses to shrug it off. He knows rebellion starts small, so he doubles the ant's workload, demanding twice as much food. It's an impossible task, but that's the point. He's reminding them who's in charge. The smartest moment, though, comes at the bar scene with his fellow grasshoppers. Some of them think he's overreacting. They laugh off the idea that one ant could pose a threat. So Hopper decides to teach them a lesson they would never forget. Using a jar of grain, he drops a few pieces on them, asking if it hurts. They say no. Then he rips open the jar, and a flood of grains buries them completely.
How about this?
The message lands with force. One ant alone is nothing, but together they can overwhelm the grasshoppers. That truth fuels Hopper's mission to keep the illusion alive that maintains his power and control. His goal is clear, and he reinforces it with sharp logic and ruthless strategy, which is what makes him a genuinely intelligent villain. But aside from a clear goal or purpose, there is something that the Screenslaver could have also benefited from. This is a trait her predecessor, Syndrome, had in abundance. One of the things that made Syndrome really smart was foresight, which is basically the ability to predict what would be needed or what would happen in the future. Foresight also requires problem solving, because predicting a problem is one thing, but knowing how to solve it is another. Villains with foresight and problem-solving skills can adapt and evolve. Rather than wallowing in defeat or their inadequacy, they get better. They may create a machine to defeat or outsmart the hero, or hire someone stronger. All these are characteristics of Syndrome. First, he had a purpose that actually made sense. His goal wasn't just to wipe out superheroes, but to erase the very idea of them. By mass-producing his high-tech weapons and selling them to the public, he wanted to create a world where everyone could be super. And if everyone's special, then no one really is. He is basically trying to use an excess of supply to cancel out demand. It's genius. Syndrome was able to predict that a time would come when supers would be needed again. He knew people would always need someone to save them. So, while others moved on, following the ban of superheroes, he prepared. First, he had to learn how to best the supers when he was still just an ordinary man. This is where his problem-solving skills as a tech genius become useful. He used this brilliant mind to build a fortune by selling advanced tech weapons. And once money was no longer a problem, he built a secret tech base and kicked off Operation Kronos. Here, he creates the Omnidroid, a weapon designed to learn from every battle. The brilliance of this plan lies in how he tests it. He sends the machine against real superheroes, collecting data each time one is defeated. With every fight, the machine improves, learning how to counter new powers and tactics. It's a horrifying but methodical process. By the time Mr. Incredible faces the Omnidroid, it's already evolved beyond anything human. It's the product of pure foresight, the result of a villain who can predict outcomes and solve problems. Even his downfall comes from being too smart for his own good. He built the Omnidroid so well that it became unpredictable, outsmarting even him. That's the irony of intelligent villains. They often lose because they've created something smarter than themselves. Professor Callahan from Big Hero 6 could have been cut from the same cloth. He had the intelligence, the tools, and the emotional motive to be one of Disney's greatest villains. He was a professor at a reputable tech institute. Hero's brother, Tadashi, even revealed that it was the professor who created the technology that Hero uses for his bot fighting. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, he was dumbed down by the writers. At first, he seems just as intelligent and calculated as Syndrome. He was able to use Hero's invention to perfection. His movements are graceful, deliberate, and controlled. reflecting a mind that understands structure and precision. But the more we learn about his motives, the less sense they make. His entire plan revolves around revenge against Alistair Cray, the businessman he blames for his daughter's disappearance during an experimental portal test. It's an understandable pain, but the way he channels it contradicts his intelligence. Instead of using his genius to find his daughter, he uses it to attempt to destroy Cray's company. He never considers the possibility that his daughter might still be alive, even though he has access to the exact technology that caused her disappearance. The same man who once taught others to think critically fails to think about his own loss. It's a total failure of foresight. A truly smart villain would have asked, "What if she's still out there?" Callahan doesn't. What's worse is that Professor Callahan didn't even make the machine that he used to rebuild the portal and attempt his revenge. It was a kid's invention, the same kid who eventually helped him retrieve his daughter, making Callahan look stupid. It doesn't help that he showed no remorse for Tadashi's death, or for anyone else who got in his way. That lack of empathy makes it hard to sympathize with him, even though the writers clearly intended us to. In the end, Syndrome shows us how a villain's foresight can raise the stakes of an entire movie, whereas Callahan is what happens when a villain's foresight is clouded by emotions only. The difference between the two is the difference between a villain who learns from the past and one who gets trapped in it. But here's where it gets kinda tricky. While foresight and problem solving goes hand in hand, they wouldn't do so well without this other crucial trait. Every smart villain must have a smart strategy or a plan, the kind that would not easily crumble under pressure, the kind that would give the hero a tough time. But perhaps more importantly, the plan must be believable. It has to make sense and fit the personality and motive of the villain. The other mother in Coraline is strategy incarnate. Rather than attacking Coraline directly, she builds an entire alternative world as the weapon. Every element of that world is bait. The food, the toys, the attention, the revised parents with button eyes.
Do you like them? I'm your other mother, silly.
She copies Coraline's life, but tailors it by sewing in the exact comforts Coraline misses. Then she waits. The other mother's strength is patience. She gives Coraline a sequence of small rewards and small satisfactions until Coraline chooses to stay. That choice is the trap. When Coraline first rejects sewing buttons into her eyes, the other mother responds by changing tactics. She kidnaps Coraline's real parents and uses them as leverage. Then she hides the ghost children's souls to force Coraline back into the game, before constructing a set of rules for the contest that mask the stakes until the last moment. By the time Coraline recognizes danger, the other mother has already planned how to counter every obvious escape. She detains Coraline behind the mirror, uses illusions to unnerve her, and transforms herself to intimidate.
Count of 3. 1, 2, 3! What are you doing?
The horror works because every detail is intentional. Her facade is the strategy. She engineers trust, then converts that trust into ownership. The other mother is effective because she thinks in systems, identify desire, design a world to exploit that desire, control the information your victim receives, and have a fallback when the victim resists. Those are the textbook moves of a strategist in fiction. Scar, on the other hand, uses strategy more like a political mastermind and military tactician. He knows his weakness is the fact that he is overshadowed by Mufasa. Therefore, he builds a plan to convert that structural disadvantage into absolute power. Scar's first moves are classic deception. He manipulates Simba into the gorge, then signals the hyenas to cause a stampede. The stampede is a staged assassination used to create a crisis that forces the king into the path of danger. When Mufasa is vulnerable, Scar refuses to help and delivers the fatal betrayal.
Long live the king.
But his strategy extends beyond the murder. Scar controls the narrative afterwards by convincing Simba that he is responsible for his father's death. Then he convinces him to flee, except Scar was smart enough to know Simba might grow up and come back for revenge, so he sends the hyenas to finish him off. Scar also brings the hyenas into the Pride Lands as a political move by trading stability for an alliance that keeps him secure at first. He reshapes the kingdom to lock out countermeasures. The land is made barren, opposition is suppressed, and rebellious symbols are erased. Both the Other Mother and Scar demonstrate the two halves of strategy that matter on screen: the structural plan and the narrative cover. The Other Mother designs a world that hides the trap in plain sight. Scar stages an event and then controls the story, so the event looks inevitable and untraceable to him. Those are the moves smart villains use. Build the machine, then hide behind it. They think in sequences and contingencies. They can sacrifice a small part now to secure a larger goal later. And crucially, they avoid unnecessary exposure. They rarely confess or blurt out their plan until they hold power or until confession itself serves a purpose. Dawn Bellwether in Zootopia is interesting precisely because she almost has all the tactical pieces but ruins the strategy through execution and reveal. Her operation is clever. She secretly weaponizes a plant, produces a focused batch of serum pellets, deploys them selectively to create fear, and then uses that fear to shift political power toward herself. The operation depends on secrecy, supply control, and plausible deniability. On this level, it is strategic. Where Bellwether fails is in the switch from covert operator to theatrical confessor. A good strategy usually keeps the strategist's identity hidden until either they are untouchable or their exposure completes the plan. But Bellwether exposes herself in a way that undercuts the system she built. In the Natural History Museum, she traps Judy and Nick, attempts to make Nick go savage on Judy by shooting him with a pellet, and then blurts out a confession.
I framed Lionheart. I can frame you too. It's my word against yours.
That idiotic confession made it seem like she didn't have any sense in the first place. Worse, the dichotomy between her characters before and after her reveal makes it impossible to believe that someone like her can come up with a strategic scheme. Throughout the movie, she's written as meek, polite, and constantly overlooked, the kind of assistant who flinches when spoken to. Then, in an instant, she turns into a manipulative schemer who engineered a citywide conspiracy. That sudden shift feels fake. There's no groundwork showing her as capable of deception, leadership, or calculated cruelty, which makes her plan feel artificial. Compare that to Scar, whose smooth voice, subtle sarcasm, and manipulative charm foreshadow every treacherous move he makes. His strategy fits his personality: cunning, jealous, and calculating. The same goes for the Other Mother. Her warmth is too perfect, and her kindness is rehearsed. From the start, we sense a hidden agenda behind her motherly tone. Both Scar and the Other Mother are consistent in who they are and what they want, which makes their strategies believable. Bellwether, on the other hand, feels like two different characters forced into one, and that split breaks the illusion of intelligence that true strategy demands. At the end of the day, Bellwether's potential intelligence died at the hands of the writers who wanted so badly to have a twist villain because it was in vogue at the time. So if you're trying to write a strategic villain, use these as checks. Show the small actions that feed a larger system. Let the villain manipulate information and people over time, and don't let them monologue their crimes into evidence unless the confession itself is a deliberate part of the plan. And finally, make their motives and personality match the chosen strategy. But don't just stop there. Giving your villain purpose, foresight, and strategy will make them smart, but sometimes not all the way. This is why this next trait is vital. Nothing spells out smartness better than expertise. Smart villains are experts. Every move, every word, every invention or weapon feels earned through experience. Mastery separates real intelligence from showmanship, It's the difference between a villain who commands respect and one who only looks the part. Scarlet Overkill is what happens when a villain has style but no skill. She walks with the swagger of a queen, throws herself onto stages with grand speeches, and acts like she has the world figured out.
Of working for the greatest supervillain of all time?
But her brilliance is an act she can't sustain. Her whole identity depends on what other people build for her. Her husband, Herb, is the one who designs her weapons, makes her dresses, and arms her with the gadgets that give her flair. That jetpack dress that lights up the night sky? Herb's work. The explosives and clever tools hidden in her outfit? All Herb. He's the one with genuine creativity.
Fully armed and loaded. And that glow? That's nuclear.
This means that Scarlet's power is borrowed. She's loud, confident, and charming, but there's nothing behind the image. Scarlet is a reminder that confidence is not the same as intelligence. You can dress like a genius, talk like a genius, even stand on a podium like one. But if someone else is doing all the thinking, the illusion will fall apart. That's what happens with her. The movie keeps trying to convince us that she's dangerous, but every scene proves otherwise. Without Herb, she's just a performer pretending to be a villain. Whereas smart villains master their craft until no one can doubt it. That's what makes Grimmel the Grizzly from How to Train Your Dragon such a sharp contrast. Grimmel is an expert, and a clever one at that. His entire life is built around one skill: hunting dragons. And he's the best in the world at it. He's the man responsible for the near extinction of the Night Furies. His first kill came when he was just a boy, the same age Hiccup was when he first met Toothless. But where Hiccup chose mercy, Grimmel went with violence. That moment set the course for his life. But here's what makes him truly interesting. Unlike his predecessor, Drago Bloodfist, who was loud and physically imposing, Grimmel doesn't even look much like a threat. His power comes from his precision. He studies dragons like a scientist, learning how they move, how they think, what frightens them, and what tempts them. He uses that knowledge to build traps so effective that no dragon escapes once he strikes. Every tool and strategy he uses shows a deep understanding of his prey. His control over the 6 Death Grippers is one of his most chilling achievements. He tamed them using their own venom, turning them into his loyal weapons. That's expertise. He turned what should have killed him into something that serves him. What makes Grimmel intelligent is also how he applies his skill. He predicts, adapts, and always stays several steps ahead. When he learns that Hiccup has the last Night Fury, he doesn't rush into battle. He uses patience as a weapon. He sends the Light Fury, a female Night Fury, as bait, knowing that Toothless's instincts will lead him straight into his trap. It's a plan built on psychological manipulation. He lets others act emotionally while he stays cold and focused. His intelligence also extends beyond dragons. Grimmel knows how to use people. He pretends to work with warlords, feeding them half-truths and false promises until he gets what he wants. The moment they're no longer useful, he disposes of them without hesitation. It's ruthless, but it's consistent. He plays everyone around him like pieces on a board, and he does it with quiet confidence. Even when he's threatened or cornered, he rarely shows fear.
I am the Night Fury killer. I've hunted every last one.
That calmness makes him dangerous because it shows control. Control that comes from knowing exactly how capable he is. Grimmel's intelligence also exposes a major weakness in other villains like Scarlet. She screams to be seen. He doesn't need to. He's confident because his power doesn't depend on attention or approval. His name alone carries weight because it's tied to a reputation that was shown rather than told. People fear Grimmel because he's proven what he can do. Every trap he sets, every choice he makes, adds to his credibility. You can tell he's been doing this for years. You can tell he's learned from failure and perfected his process.
I'm afraid you're mistaken. You've never seen anything like me.
That's why his presence builds tension before he even attacks. Scarlet, on the other hand, has no history that suggests skill or growth. Everything about her feels manufactured for show. Therefore, when you write a villain who is an expert, you give the audience someone to respect and fear at the same time. We might hate what they do, but we understand how they do it. Their methods make sense, and their choices feel earned. Funny how most of the villains who failed weren't just dumb, but were twist villains who didn't earn their twist. If you want to know how to fix that, you'll want to see how Ernesto de la Cruz did what Bellwether couldn't.